Admiral Jiwan Park walked into the Great Hall where the United Earth Council met. Her boots clicked on the marble floor as hundreds of eyes turned to watch her. She carried a small device in her hand that would show them something no human had ever tried to build before. The hall was huge, with seats rising up like steps around a central stage. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat waiting. Some looked curious. Others looked bored. A few looked angry that she was even there. At the back of the hall sat Ambassador Veltar. He was not human. His skin was gray and smooth, and his eyes were large and black. He came from a group of alien races called the Galactic Federation. They had been watching Earth for many years. Most of the time, they acted like humans were children who could not do anything important. Jiwan pressed a button on her device. A huge image appeared in the air above her head. It showed a giant ring floating in space around a star. The ring was so big that Earth could fit inside it many times over. "Members of the Council," Jiwan said in a clear voice, "I present to you Project Genesis, humanity's first megastructure in deep space." The hall became very quiet. People stared at the image with wide eyes. The ring in the picture looked impossible to build. It was bigger than anything humans had ever made. Chief Engineer Min-Ho Kim stood up from his seat near the front. He was a thin man with kind eyes and hands that were always moving when he talked. "The technology exists," he said. "We have tested every part of this design. It can be done." Someone in the crowd laughed. It was a mean sound. Counselor Sun-Ho Lee got to his feet. He was a big man who always wore expensive clothes. "This is crazy," he said loudly. "We can barely keep our space stations working. Now, you want to build something around a star?" More people began to talk. Some agreed with Sun-Ho. Others seemed excited by the idea. The noise grew louder and louder. Ambassador Veltar made a sound that was like clicking. All the humans in this room looked at him. "Your species," he said in a voice that sounded like he was talking to small children, "has made some nice toys. Your little space stations are cute. But this?" He pointed at the image. "This is beyond you. Our oldest races took thousands of years to build such things. You have been in space for less than 100 years. Jiwan felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "With respect, Ambassador, humans have always done things others said were impossible." Dr. Hana Choi stood up next. She was young for such an important job, with long black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. She was the smartest person Jiwan had ever met. "The math works," Hana said simply. "I have checked it many times. The ring can be built using materials we can find in the Alpha Centauri system. We do not need to carry everything from Earth." "How long would it take?" asked someone from the middle of the room. Min-Ho answered quickly. 10 years for the basic structure. 20 years for it to be finished and ready for people to live in." "How much would it cost?" asked another voice. "Everything," Jiwan said honestly. "This project would use most of Earth's resources for building in space, but when it is done, we would have a home for millions of people around another star. We would no longer be trapped on just one world." Sun-Ho shook his head hard. "You are asking us to risk everything on a dream. What if it fails? What if people die? What if we waste all our resources and have nothing to show for it? What if we succeed?" Jiwan asked back. "What if we build something that shows the galaxy that humans can do great things? What if we create a new home for our children and their children?" The room was quiet again. People were thinking hard about what she had said. An old woman stood up slowly. Jiwan recognized her as Dr. Chen Wei, one of the most respected scientists on Earth. "I have read the plans," she said in a soft voice. "They are good, very good, but the dangers are real. If something goes wrong, we could lose thousands of people, maybe more." "We lose people every day," said a man Jiwan did not know. we lose. Them in wars, in accidents, in disasters. At least these people would die trying to build something beautiful. Ambassador Veltar clicked again. You will fail, he said. And when you do, the Federation will be there to help you pick up the pieces. As we always are. Something in his voice made Ji-won even more angry. It was like he wanted them to fail. Like he was already planning to say, I told you so when things went wrong. We have never asked for your help before, she said. We will not need it now. The voting took 3 hours. Representatives talked and argued and made speeches. Some said the project was too dangerous. Others said it was too expensive. A few said it was exactly what humanity needed to grow and become stronger. When the votes were finally counted, Project Genesis won by just 5 votes. It was close, but it was enough. Ji-won felt her heart beating fast as the results were announced. They were really going to do it. They were going to build something bigger than any human structure in history. After the meeting, Hana came up to her. It will not be easy, she said quietly. Everything has to work perfectly. The construction ships, the materials, the workers, the technology. If any part fails, the whole project could collapse. I know, Ji-won said. But we have to try. If we do not push ourselves to do great things, we will never know what we can really accomplish. Minho joined them. His eyes were bright with excitement. I have been dreaming of this for 20 years, he said. A real megastructure. Something that will last for thousands of years and show the universe what humans can build. Ambassador Veltar walked past them as he left the hall. He stopped and looked at Ji-won with his large black eyes. When you fail, he said quietly, remember that we warned you. Your species is not ready for projects like this. When we succeed, Ji-won replied, remember that you said it was impossible. The alien made his clicking sound again and walked away. That night, Ji-won stood on the balcony of her apartment and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, around one of those tiny points of light, they would build humanity's first megastructure. It would be hard. It would be dangerous. Some people would probably die. But if they succeeded, they would create something amazing. A new home for humans among the stars. A place where millions of people could live and work and raise their children. A symbol that showed the galaxy that Earth's children were ready to take their place among the stars. She thought about all the things that could go wrong. Equipment failures, accidents, political problems, maybe even attacks from other alien races who did not want humans to succeed. But she also thought about what could go right. The joy on people's faces when they saw their new home for the first time. Children being born in space around another star. The knowledge that humanity had built something truly great. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. 5 years had passed since the vote. Luna Station buzzed with activity like never before. The moon base had grown from a small research outpost to the biggest construction yard humans had ever built. Ships of all sizes filled the space around. Waiting for their turn to join the great fleet. Captain Tae-hyun Jang stood on the bridge of his ship, the Determination. It was the biggest ship in the fleet, built specially for this mission. Through the wide windows, he could see dozens of other ships getting ready to leave. Some carried people, others carried machines. The biggest ones carried materials that would be turned into parts of the megastructure. 200 ships, said his second-in-command, Lieutenant Park. I never thought I would see so many human ships in one place. Tae-hyun nodded. He had been in space for 15 years. But this was different from anything he had done before. They were not just traveling to another planet. They were going to build a new world around another star. Down in the cargo bay, Master Builder Yuna Song checked her equipment for the 10th time that day. The nano-fabricators were her babies. These machines could take raw materials and turn them into almost anything. They were small, but when thousands of them worked together, they could build amazing things. Are you sure they will work in space? Around Alpha Centauri? Asked her assistant. a young engineer named Jinwoo. "They worked in all our tests," Yuna said. "But you are right to worry. We have never tried to use them so far from Earth. The radiation from the star might cause problems. The cold of space might make them slow. We will have to watch them carefully." The construction drones worried her more. These robots would do most of the actual building work. They could carry heavy objects, weld metal, and work in places too. Dangerous for humans. But they needed constant communication with the control computers. If something went wrong with the communication system, the drones would stop working. In another part of Luna Station, Dr. Kyung-an made his final checks of the jump system. This was the technology that would let the fleet travel faster than light. Without it, the trip to Alpha Centauri would take thousands of years. The jump system was new and had only been tested a few times. Each test had worked, but never with so many ships at once. Kyung worried about what would happen if the ships got separated during the jump. Some might end up in the wrong place. Others might be lost completely. "The calculations look good," he told Admiral Jiwon, who had come to check on his progress. "But space is big and dangerous. Many things could go wrong. Many things could go right, too," Jiwon replied. She had learned to stay positive over the past 5 years. The project had faced many problems already. Politicians who wanted to cancel it. Engineers who said it was impossible. Workers who quit because they were scared. But they had solved each problem as it came up. New politicians had been elected who supported the project. Better engineers had been found. New workers had volunteered to replace those who left. On Earth, people watched the news about the fleet every day. Some were excited. Others were worried. A few were angry that so much money was being spent on something so far away when there were still problems on Earth. In the alien embassy in New York, Ambassador Veltar sent reports back to the Galactic Federation. His messages were not kind to humans. He wrote that they were being foolish and would probably die in space. He said their technology was too primitive and their ships were too weak. Other alien races were watching too. The Zephyrian Empire was known for being warlike and proud. Their War Prime Thexel made speeches saying that humans were trying to do something beyond their abilities. He said they would crawl back to their little blue world within a decade. After they failed and begged for help. The Crystalline Collective, a race of beings made of living stone, placed bets on how long the human project would last. Most thought it would fail within 2 years. A few generous ones gave it 5 years, before complete collapse. But not all aliens were negative. A small group of scientist aliens from different races had been quietly studying human technology. They were impressed by how quickly humans learned and adapted. Some sent secret messages offering advice, though their governments had forbidden any help. Back on Luna Station, the final preparations continued. Supply ships arrived every day with food, water, medicine, and spare parts. The fleet would need to be self-sufficient for years. There would be no quick trips back to Earth if something was forgotten. Jiwon walked through the station, talking to workers and checking on progress. In the medical bay, doctors prepared for every kind of emergency they could think of. In the I, Communications Center, technicians tested the equipment that would keep the fleet in contact with Earth. In the weapons storage area, soldiers loaded defense systems onto the ships. They hoped they would never need to fight, but space could be dangerous. The night before departure, Jiwon called a meeting of all the senior officers and department heads. The room was crowded with the best and brightest people humanity had to offer: engineers, doctors, scientists, soldiers, and construction workers. All of them had volunteered to leave Earth behind and risk everything for this project. "Tomorrow, we leave," Jiwon began. "We are going farther from Earth than any human has gone before. We are going to try to build something bigger than any human has built before. Many of you have families and friends who think we are crazy. Maybe we are." A few people laughed nervously. "But if we succeed," she continued, "we will create a new home for humanity. A place where millions of people can live and work among the stars." We will show the galaxy that humans are not just another primitive species that will stay trapped on one world forever. She looked around the room at all the faces watching her. Young and old, men and women, people from every continent on Earth. They had all chosen to risk their lives for this dream. The journey will be hard. The work will be harder. Some of us might not survive. But every great thing humans have ever done required people who were willing to take risks and make sacrifices. Tomorrow we join that tradition. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Master Builder Yuna stood up and started clapping. Others joined in until the whole room was filled with applause. After the meeting, people went back to their ships to make final preparations. Some wrote letters to their families on Earth. Others checked their equipment one more time. A few just sat quietly and thought about what they were about to do. Taehyun stood on his bridge and looked out at all the ships in the fleet. Each one carried part of humanity's dream. The cargo ships had the materials they would need. The construction ships had the tools and machines. The habitat ships carried the people who would do the work. At exactly 800 hours the next morning, Dr. Kyung activated the jump system. Space around the fleet began to shimmer and bend. Stars stretched into lines of light. Then, in a flash that could be seen from Earth, 200 ships vanished. They were gone for 17 hours. On Earth, people waited nervously for news. Communication systems listened for any signal from the fleet. Military satellites watched the space around Luna, stationed for any sign of trouble. Then, exactly on schedule, a message arrived. It was from Admiral G1, broadcasting from the Alpha Centauri system. This is Admiral Park reporting successful arrival at Alpha Centauri. All ships accounted for. All personnel safe. Construction of humanity's first megastructure will begin immediately. Around the world, people cheered. They had done it. Humans had traveled to another star and were ready to build something amazing. The Alpha Centauri system was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The star burned brighter than Earth's sun, casting harsh light across space. There were no planets close enough to the star to be useful, just rocks and ice floating in the darkness. Engineer Seojun Lim floated outside his construction ship, wearing a thick spacesuit that protected him from radiation. Through his helmet visor, he could see the first structural anchor being moved into position. It was huge, bigger than any building on Earth, but it looked tiny against the vastness of space. Anchor 1 is in position, he reported over his radio. Beginning attachment sequence. The anchor was made of the strongest materials humans knew how to make. It had to be. This single piece would help hold up a structure that went all the way around the star. If it failed, everything would collapse. Seojun guided the construction. Drones, as they began welding the anchor to a framework that would eventually become part of the ring. The work was slow and dangerous. One mistake could destroy months of progress. Back on the command ship, Admiral Jiwon watched the construction through multiple cameras. Every step had to be perfect. They had no room for error so far from Earth. "How long for the first anchor?" she asked. 3 days if everything goes well, Seojun answered. 6 days if we run into problems. Problems came sooner than expected. On the second day, alarms began ringing throughout the fleet. Dr. Hana Choi was the first to understand what was happening. "Solar flare incoming," she announced over the communication system. "All personnel to shielded areas immediately. All construction work must stop." A solar flare was like a giant explosion on the surface of the star. It sent out dangerous radiation and charged particles that could kill anyone caught in space without protection. Earth's magnetic field usually protected people from solar flares, but here they had no such protection. The construction workers rushed back to their ships as fast as they could. Most made it safely, but some were caught outside when the flare hit. Their spacesuits protected them from the worst of it, but several people were injured and had to be taken to the medical bay. Worse than the injuries was the damage to their work. The intense radiation fried the electronics in many of the construction drones. The first anchor, which had been almost finished, was twisted and damaged by the magnetic forces of the flare. Foreman Minji Bay gathered her construction teams after the flare passed. She was a small woman, but her voice was strong and clear. Her workers respected her because she never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. "We lost 3 months of work," she told them honestly. "The first anchor is ruined. Half our drones are dead. Some of you are hurt. It would be easy to give up and go home." Her workers listened quietly. They were tired and discouraged. Building in space was much harder than anyone had expected. "But we are not going home," Minji continued. "We are going to rebuild everything. We are going to make it stronger than before. We are going to finish this project because that is what humans do. We do not quit when things get hard." The workers began to cheer. Their spirits were lifted by her words and her confidence. The next few weeks were brutal. Working in space was exhausting, even when everything went right. The construction workers had to wear heavy spacesuits all the time. The suits were hot and uncomfortable. Moving in zero gravity was hard. Every tool had to be tethered, so it would not float away. Seojin worked 18 hours a day, supervising the repair of the damaged anchor. The metal had been warped by the solar flare, but it could be fixed. His teams used cutting torches to remove the damaged sections and welders to put in new pieces. Meanwhile, Unisong worked with her technicians to repair the damaged construction drones. These robots were complicated machines with thousands of parts. Each one that died in the solar flare had to be taken apart and rebuilt. "We need more spare parts," she told Jiwon during one of their daily meetings. "The radiation here is worse than we expected. The drones break down faster than they do near Earth." "How many more?" Jiwon asked. "At least twice as many as we brought, maybe 3 times as many." This was a serious problem. They had brought what they thought were enough, spare parts for the entire project. If they needed 3 times as many, they would run out long before the megastructure was finished. Dr. Kyung-an had an idea. "What if we set up a manufacturing facility right here? We could use materials from the asteroids in this system to make our own spare parts." It was a good idea, but it would take time to set up. Time they might not have if more equipment kept breaking down. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Hana had been studying the radiation from Alpha Centauri, trying to predict when the next solar flare would hit. During her research, she discovered something interesting. "The star's radiation follows a pattern," she explained to the senior staff. "It gets stronger and weaker in cycles. If we time our work correctly, we can do the most dangerous construction during the quiet periods and hide behind the partially built structure during the active periods." This changed everything. Instead of fighting against the star's radiation, they could work with it. They reorganized their construction schedule to match the star's cycles. Minho Kim had been quiet during the early weeks, watching and learning. Now he came forward with improvements to their construction methods. His adaptive algorithms could change the building plans in real time as conditions changed. "The original design assumed we would have perfect conditions," he explained. "But space is not perfect. My new system can adjust the structure as we build it, making it stronger in some places and lighter in others, depending on what we need." The first major success came 2 months after the solar flare disaster. The first segment ring was completed. It was a curved section of the megastructure, about 100 kilometers long. When connected to other segments, it would form part of the Great Ring around the star. Seojun was the first person to walk along its inner surface. The artificial gravity generators were working, so he could walk normally instead of floating. Looking up, he could see the star shining through the transparent sections of the ceiling. "It is beautiful," he said over his radio, "and it is huge, much bigger than I expected." Even though it was just one small piece of the final structure, it was already the largest thing humans had ever built. It could house thousands of people and had everything they would need to live in space: farms, Factories, homes, schools, and parks were all built into the structure. The success of the first segment gave everyone new energy. They had proven that the design worked. They had shown that humans could build on this scale in the harsh environment of deep space. But they had also learned how difficult it would be. Everything took longer than expected. Equipment broke down constantly. Solar flares and other space weather caused delays and damage. They were using up supplies faster than planned. Messages from Earth brought mixed news. Some people were excited about the progress and wanted to send more supplies and workers. Others were worried about the cost and the dangers. A few politicians were calling for the project to be canceled and the fleet to return home. Ambassador Veltar was still telling anyone who would listen that the humans would fail. His reports to the Galactic Federation described every problem and delay in detail. He seemed to enjoy writing about human struggles, but there were also messages of support. Children in schools on Earth were following the construction progress and sending drawings and letters to the workers. Scientists were studying the data being sent back and making new discoveries about how to build in space. Most importantly, more volunteers were signing up to join the project. The success of the first segment ring had inspired people. They wanted to be part of humanity's greatest adventure. Ji-won stood in the observation deck of the first segment ring and looked out at the star. They had come so far already, but they still had years of work ahead of them. There would be more solar flares, more equipment failures, more setbacks, but they had proven something important. Humans could work together to build amazing things, even in the most difficult conditions. They could adapt and overcome problems that seemed impossible to solve. She thought about the children on Earth who were watching and dreaming of the day they might come to live in the megastructure. She thought about the future generations who would be born here, among the stars. They were not just building a structure, they were building humanity's future in space. The alien ships appeared without warning. One day, the space around Alpha Centauri was empty except for the human construction fleet. The next day, 30 warships from the Galactic Federation hung in space like dark metal clouds. Admiral Ji-won was in the middle of reviewing construction reports when her communications officer shouted across the bridge. "Admiral, unknown ships dropping out of hyperspace, multiple contacts bearing 27 Mark IV. Ji-won rushed to the main display screen. The alien ships were bigger than any human vessel, with strange curved hulls that seemed to bend light around them. They moved in perfect formation, clearly military vessels designed for war. "This is Admiral Kenthar of the Federation Peacekeeping Fleet," came a voice over the radio. The words were translated by computers, but the tone was cold and threatening. "Human vessels, you will cease all construction activities immediately. You are conducting dangerous experiments that threaten the stability of this system." Ji-won felt her heart racing, but she kept her voice calm when she replied. "This is Admiral Ji-won Park of the United Earth Construction Fleet. We are conducting legal construction activities in unclaimed space. We have violated no Federation laws." "You have violated the law of common sense," Kenthar replied. "Your primitive technology is not capable of building stable megastructures. When your construction fails, it will create debris that could damage other systems. For the safety of all, you must abandon this project and submit to Federation oversight." Ji-won looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were scared, but determined. They had worked too hard and come too far to give up now. "We respectfully decline," she said. "This project will continue as planned." There was a long silence. Then Kenthar spoke again, and this time his voice was even colder. "You have one standard day to reconsider. If you do not begin dismantling your construction, we will be forced to take action to protect galactic security." The communication ended, leaving the human fleet alone with their thoughts. 30 alien warships against 200 human vessels. Sounded like good odds, but Ji-won knew better. Most of the human ships were cargo vessels and construction platforms. They had some weapons for protection against pirates and asteroids, but they were not built for war. She called an emergency meeting of all department heads. Captain Tai Hyun, Master Builder Yuna, Chief Engineer Minho, and Dr. Hana all gathered in the conference room with worried expressions. Options? Ji-won asked simply. We could try to negotiate, suggested Dr. Hana. Maybe offer to let Federation observers monitor our work to prove it is safe. They do not want to observe, said Yuna angrily. They want us to fail. They want to prove that humans cannot build great things. Tactical Officer Woo Jin Kang had been quiet during the discussion, studying reports about the alien ships on his portable computer. Now he looked up with a strange expression. I think we can win, he said quietly. Everyone stared at him. Win against 30 advanced alien warships? It sounded impossible. Look at this, Woo Jin continued, showing them his screen. Their ships are designed for fighting in open space. Big, powerful, but not very maneuverable. Our ships are smaller and faster, and we have something they do not have. What? Asked Ji-won. We have the Megastructure, Woo Jin said with a small smile. The parts we have already built can be used as cover and defensive positions. The construction drones can be turned into weapons. The material processors can make ammunition. We can turn our construction site into a fortress. It was a crazy idea, but it might work. The partially completed megastructure was already huge, with many places to hide ships and set up. Defensive positions. The construction drones were strong and fast. With some modifications, they could carry explosives or ramming charges. It would be very dangerous, warned Captain Tae Hyun. If we lose, they might destroy everything we have built. If we surrender, they will definitely destroy everything we have built, replied Ji-won. At least this way we have a chance to protect our work. The next 20 hours were the busiest in the project's history. Construction workers stopped building the megastructure and started preparing for war. Welders attached armor plating to important sections. Engineers rigged the construction drones with explosive charges. Supply officers distributed every weapon in the fleet to anyone who could use one. Dr. Eunji Nam, the project's expert on alien biology and psychology, spent the time studying everything known about the Federation species. She was looking for clues about their tactics and weaknesses. The Federation races are old, she explained to Ji-won. They have been in space for thousands of years. They are used to being the strongest and smartest in any situation. That could be a weakness. They might underestimate us because we are young and new to space. When the deadline arrived, Admiral Kenthar contacted the human fleet again. Have you reconsidered your position? We have, Ji-won replied. Our position is unchanged. This construction will continue. Then you force us to act. Surrender now, and you will be treated with mercy. Continue to resist and face the consequences. We choose to resist, Ji-won said firmly. The first shots were fired 10 minutes later. The alien ships moved forward in their perfect formation, energy weapons charging and missile tubes opening. They expected the human ships to scatter in panic or surrender immediately. Instead, the human fleet disappeared. The construction ships ducked behind the partially built sections of the megastructure. The cargo vessels hid in the shadows of large asteroids. Even the command ship vanished into a hollow section of the ring structure. Where did they go? Demanded Kenthar over the open communication channel. His perfect formation was suddenly attacking empty space. The answer came from everywhere at once. Small human fighters emerged from hiding places throughout the construction site. Construction drones, armed with explosive charges, swarmed toward the alien ships like angry insects. Missiles launched from hidden positions among the megastructure's framework. The aliens had superior technology, but they were fighting in an environment designed by their enemies. Every piece of metal, every construction crane, every power cable had been turned into part of the defensive system. Woo Jin coordinated the battle from a command center deep inside the megastructure. He had studied every alien ship and identified their weak points. His fighters struck fast and then disappeared back into the maze of construction equipment. Target their sensor arrays, he ordered over the radio. Blind them first, then hit their engines. The plan worked better than anyone had hoped. The alien ships, designed for fighting in open space, struggled to maneuver among the construction debris and partially built structures. Their powerful weapons were too big to target the small, fast human fighters effectively. But the humans were taking losses too. 3 construction ships were destroyed in the first hour of fighting. A cargo vessel carrying medical supplies was vaporized by an alien energy beam. Dozens of workers were killed when their section of the megastructure was hit by enemy fire. Foreman Minji Bay was leading a team of construction workers who were using their tools as weapons. Industrial lasers, designed for cutting metal, were turned against alien hull armor. Magnetic cranes grabbed enemy missiles and threw them back at their launchers. "These aliens think they are so much better than us," she shouted to her team over the noise of battle. "Let us show them what human workers can do." The turning point came when Dr. Hannah made a discovery about the alien weapons. She had been analyzing the energy signatures from their shots and found something interesting. "Their weapons are powered by their main engines," she announced over the communication system. "If we can overload their power systems, their weapons will shut down." Yuna Song immediately understood what this meant. Her nanofabricators could create small devices that would attach to the alien ships and interfere with their power systems. It would be dangerous to get close enough to place them, but it might end the battle quickly. Volunteer pilots took the devices and flew their small ships directly at the alien vessels. Many were shot down before they could reach their targets, but some got through. The nanofabricators began eating through the alien hull armor and interfering with their power systems. One by one, the alien ships began to lose power. Their weapons went silent. Their engines stopped working. They drifted helplessly in space while the human fighters surrounded them. "This is impossible," Admiral Kenthar transmitted on an open channel. "Your technology is primitive. You should not be able to defeat us." "You made a mistake," Jiwon replied. "You assume that older always means better. But sometimes being new and different is an advantage. You were so sure you knew everything about warfare that you never considered what we might do differently." The battle was over, but the victory had come at a cost. 7 human ships were destroyed, and 43 workers were dead. Parts of the megastructure were damaged and would need to be rebuilt, but they had won. The alien fleet was defeated, and the construction could continue. Dr. Yunji had been studying the aliens throughout the battle, and she had reached some disturbing conclusions. They were not really trying to stop dangerous construction, she told Jiwon privately. They were trying to stop us from succeeding. Our rapid progress threatens their position as... The victory against the alien fleet had come with a heavy price, not just the ships and lives lost in battle, but something more dangerous in the long term. The Galactic Federation had placed a blockade around the solar system. No supply ships could get through from Earth to the construction site. Yuna Song stood in the main supply depot, looking at charts that showed their remaining materials. The numbers were not good. They had enough metal for maybe 6 more months of construction. Food would last 8 months if they were careful. Medical supplies were already running low. "We need to find materials here," she told her team of engineers. "There is no choice. If we wait for the blockade to end, we will starve long before that happens." The asteroid belt around Alpha Centauri had plenty of raw materials, but turning space rocks into construction materials was not easy. The asteroids contained metal, but it was mixed with stone and ice. Separating the useful parts required special equipment they did not have. Seojun Lim had an idea that sounded crazy, but might work. "What if we modify the construction drones? They are designed to weld and cut metal. Maybe we can teach them to mine asteroids too." It was worth trying. Seojun and his team began reprogramming the drones, changing them from construction workers into miners. They gave the drones new tools, rock crushers, ore separators, and smelting equipment. The first attempts were disasters. The drones tried to mine asteroids the same way they built structures, with careful precision and slow movements. But asteroids were not like manufactured parts. They were irregular, unpredictable, and full of surprises. One drone tried to cut through what looked like solid rock and hit a pocket of gas that exploded, destroying the drone and damaging a nearby cargo ship. Another drone got stuck in loose gravel and had to be rescued by a human crew. But slowly, the drones learned. Seojun wrote new programs that taught them to scan asteroids before cutting, to expect surprises, and to work together in teams. The breakthrough came when he realized that mining was more like hunting than construction. The drones needed to be adaptive and creative, not just precise. Meanwhile, Dr. Kyung-an was working on an even bigger problem. The construction site needed enormous amounts of power. The ship's nuclear reactors could provide some electricity, but not nearly enough, for the giant machines that built the megastructure. They had brought fusion power plants from Earth, but these needed fuel that was becoming scarce. The blockade meant no more fuel shipments from home. They needed a new source of energy, and they needed it fast. Kyung was studying the radiation from Alpha Centauri when he made a discovery that changed everything. The star was constantly sending out charged particles in what scientists called stellar wind. This wind was usually seen as a problem because it interfered with electronics and communications. But what if it could be turned into a solution? "We can harvest the stellar wind," Kyung explained to Admiral Jiwon during an emergency meeting. "The charged particles carry enormous amounts of energy. If we can capture them and convert them to electricity, we will have more power than we know what to do with." The idea was revolutionary, but it required building something that had never been tried before: a stellar wind collector. It would be like a giant net stretched across space, capturing the particles streaming out from the star. Chief Engineer Min-ho Kim was fascinated by the challenge. His adaptive construction algorithms could design a collector that would adjust itself automatically as the stellar wind changed. But it would have to be huge, bigger than anything they had built so far. "How big?" asked Ji-won. "At least 1,000 kilometers across," Min-ho replied. "Maybe bigger, and it has to be incredibly light, or it will collapse under its own weight." Building. Something that large would use most of their remaining materials. If the collector failed, they would have nothing left for the main construction project. It was an enormous gamble, but they had no choice. Without power, the megastructure could never be completed. Without materials, they would run out of supplies and die in space. They had to try something revolutionary. The construction of the stellar wind collector began immediately. It was unlike anything humans had ever built. Instead of solid metal, it was made of ultra-thin sheets of conductive material stretched between a framework of cables and supports. The work was incredibly dangerous. The collector had to be built close to the star to catch the most particles, but that meant working in intense radiation and extreme heat. Construction workers had to wear special shielded suits and could only work for a few hours at a time. Foreman Minji Bae led the construction teams with her usual determination, but even she was worried. "We are building a spider web around a star," she told her workers. "One mistake, and the whole thing could tear apart." The first test came 3 weeks after construction began. A small section of the collector was activated while the rest was still being built. Everyone held their breath as the delicate equipment tried to capture stellar wind particles and convert them to electricity. For a moment, nothing happened. The instruments showed no power generation at all. Some people began to think the whole idea was a failure. Then the power readings began to climb, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The collector was working. The stellar wind particles were being captured and turned into electricity. "Power output is exceeding all projections," reported Dr. Kyung, excitement clear in his voice. "We are generating 50 times more electricity than our best fusion reactor." The success of the collector changed everything. With unlimited power, the construction drones could work around the clock. The material processors could turn asteroid rock into pure metal faster than ever before. Even better, they could power new machines that had been impossible to use before. Unisong used the new power supply to activate her most advanced nanofabricators. These tiny machines could take any raw material and rearrange its atoms to create exactly what was needed. With enough power, they could turn worthless space rock into the strongest materials known to science. "We do not need supply ships from Earth anymore," she announced happily. "We can make everything we need right here." The mining operation also benefited from the unlimited power. The modified construction drones could now use high-energy tools that made mining much faster and easier. Instead of carefully chipping away at asteroids, they could use plasma cutters and magnetic extractors to pull out pure metal in minutes. But the most important breakthrough was psychological. The workers had been discouraged by their isolation and the constant shortage of supplies. Now they felt like they could accomplish anything. If they could build a stellar wind collector and power it with a star, what could not be done? Construction of the megastructure accelerated dramatically. Sections that had taken months to build were now completed in weeks. The ring around Alpha Centauri grew visibly larger every day. Other alien races began to take notice. Ships from the Crystalline Collective appeared at the edge of the system, not to attack, but to observe. The beings made of living stone were impressed by human adaptability and creativity. "They solve problems in ways we never considered," reported one crystalline observer. "Their technology is primitive, but their thinking is advanced. They do not accept limitations the way we do." Even some members of the Galactic Federation began to question the blockade. Reports from their own scientists described human innovations that seemed impossible. How could such a young species develop stellar engineering techniques that the Federation had never mastered? Ambassador Veldtar found his position becoming difficult. His reports had consistently said that humans would fail quickly and completely. Instead, they were succeeding beyond anyone's expectations. Some Federation Council members began to wonder if he had been wrong about humanity's capabilities. Back at the construction site, morale was higher than it had ever been. Workers who had been homesick and discouraged now spoke excitedly about their projects. They were not just building a megastructure anymore. They were proving that humans could thrive anywhere in the galaxy. Dr. Hana Choi made another important discovery while studying the stellar wind collector. The energy capture process created side effects that could revolutionize space travel. The same technology that gathered particles from the star could be used to create more efficient rocket engines. "We could build ships that are 10 times faster than anything we have now," she explained to Jiwon. "Ships that could travel between star systems in months instead of years." The implications were staggering. Faster ships would mean easier communication with Earth. They could explore more star systems and establish more colonies. Humanity could spread across the galaxy much more quickly than anyone had thought possible. But first, they had to finish the megastructure. It was now more than halfway complete, a massive ring that could be seen from light years away. The inner surface was already being prepared for colonists, with farms and factories and living areas for millions of people. Messages from Earth brought news that more volunteer colonists were preparing to make the journey. The blockade was making travel difficult, but people were finding ways around it. Some were building their own ships. Others were negotiating with alien traders who were willing to smuggle passengers through Federation space. The message from Earth arrived on a Tuesday morning, marked with the highest priority codes. Admiral Jiwon read it 3 times before she fully understood what it meant. The United Earth Council was sending Secretary General Sun-Ho Lee to Alpha Centauri with new orders for the megastructure project. Jiwon remembered Sun-Ho well. He had been one of the strongest opponents of Project Genesis during the original vote. Now he was the most powerful politician on Earth, and he was coming to take control of humanity's greatest achievement. The official message was polite but firm. Earth was concerned about the military capabilities demonstrated during the battle with the alien fleet. The megastructure was too powerful and too important to remain under purely scientific control. It needed to be militarized and fortified to defend human interests in space. Captain Tae-hyun Jang read the message over Ji-won's shoulder and shook his head. "They want to turn our home into a fortress," he said quietly. "This was supposed to be a place for families and children, not soldiers and weapons." The Secretary General's ship arrived 2 weeks later, accompanied by a fleet of military vessels from Earth. The ships were sleek and modern, designed specifically for warfare rather than construction or exploration. They carried soldiers, weapons, and politicians who had never worked a day in the harsh environment of space. Sun-ho Lee had changed since Ji-won last saw him. His expensive clothes were now military uniforms. His soft politician's smile had been replaced by the cold expression of someone used to giving orders and having them obeyed without question. "Admiral Park," he said when they met in the docking bay of the megastructure. "Congratulations on your success here. The Council is very impressed with what you have accomplished." "Thank you, Secretary General," Ji-won replied carefully. "We are proud of what we have built." "As you should be," Sun-ho continued, "which is why Earth has decided that this facility is too valuable to risk. From now on, the megastructure will be under direct control of the Earth Defense Force. All construction decisions will be approved by military commanders. All personnel will report to Earth authorities." Ji-won felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "With respect, sir, this project has been successful precisely because it was run by scientists and engineers, not politicians and soldiers. The people here understand the challenges of building in space. They know what works and what does not. The people here," Sun-ho said with emphasis, "are Earth citizens who serve at the pleasure of the Earth government. They will follow orders like everyone else." The news of Earth's takeover spread quickly through the megastructure. Construction workers, engineers, scientists, and support staff gathered in small groups to discuss what it meant. Many were angry. Others were worried. A few were scared about what might happen to their families back on Earth if they resisted. Chief Engineer Min-ho Kim was working in his laboratory when Tactical Officer Woo-jin Kong came to see him. Woo-jin looked worried and kept checking to make sure no one was listening to their conversation. "I found something," Woo-jin said quietly. "Evidence of sabotage. Someone has been interfering with our construction systems and sending information about our defenses to outside sources." Min-ho stopped working and looked at him carefully. "What kind of sabotage?" "Small things, mostly. Delays in supply deliveries. Equipment failures that should not have happened. Communication problems during critical operations. Each incident by itself looks like an accident, but together they form a pattern." "Who?" Min-ho asked. "I am not sure yet," Woo-jin replied. "But the sabotage started about the same time that Earth began talking about taking control of the project. Someone wanted to make us look incompetent or unreliable. The investigation led them to some disturbing discoveries. Messages were being sent from the megastructure to Earth without going through official channels. Security codes had been copied and distributed to unauthorized personnel. Most troubling, detailed plans of the megastructure's defensive systems had been transmitted to unknown recipients. Chief Security Officer Do-hyun-yu took over the investigation with a team of his most trusted people. What they found was worse than anyone had expected. The sabotage was not coming from alien agents or enemy spies. It was coming from other humans. A group of Earth politicians and military officers had been working together to undermine the project's independence. They wanted the megastructure to fail just enough to justify taking it over, but not enough to destroy it completely. They had planted agents among the construction crews and support staff, people who reported to Earth rather than to the project, leadership. "They have been planning this for months," Do-hyun reported to Ji-won in a private meeting. "Maybe longer. Every problem we faced, every delay and setback was made worse by people working against us from the inside." The revelation was devastating. People who had worked side by side, who had risked their lives together during the alien attack, who had shared the excitement of every breakthrough and success, had been betraying each other all along. But the worst was yet to come. Secretary General Sun Ho called a meeting of all senior personnel to announce Earth's new policies for the megastructure. The meeting was held in the main conference room, with Earth's military officers standing guard at every door. Effective immediately, Sun Ho announced. This facility will be designated as Fortress Alpha, Earth's first deep space military base. All civilian construction will be suspended. All resources will be devoted to building weapons and defensive systems. The resident population will be limited to military personnel and essential support staff. Master Builder Yuna Song stood up from her seat. What about the families who were supposed to live here? What about the children who were going to be born here? This was supposed to be humanity's first new home among the stars? Plans change, Sun Ho replied coldly. The galaxy is a dangerous place. We need military strength, not playgrounds and gardens. Dr. Hana Choi was also on her feet. The research we are doing here could benefit all of humanity. If you turn this into just another military base, you will be wasting the greatest scientific opportunity in human history. Science serves the state, Sun Ho said. Your research will continue, but it will focus on military applications, weapons, defenses, and surveillance systems. The room erupted in angry voices. Scientists, engineers, and construction workers all began talking at once, protesting the changes and demanding explanations. The Earth military officers moved closer to their weapons, clearly prepared to use force if necessary. Foreman Minji Bei shouted over the noise. We did not come here to build a fortress. We came here to build a home, a place where humans could live and work and raise their children in peace. You came here to follow orders, Sun Ho replied. Just like good soldiers. We are not soldiers, said Seojin Lim. We are builders. We create things, not destroy them. The confrontation might have turned violent, but Jiwon stepped forward and raised her hand for silence. The room gradually became quiet, though the tension remained thick in the air. Secretary General Lee, she said formally, I understand Earth's concerns about security, but this project has succeeded because the people here believe in what they are building. If you turn it into something they cannot support, you will lose the dedication and creativity that made it possible. Then we will replace them with people who can follow orders, Sun Ho replied. Replace us? Yuna laughed bitterly. Do you think you can just send up some soldiers and have them continue building a megastructure? Do you know how long it took us to learn to work in this environment? How many mistakes we made before we figured out what works and what does not? Earth has many qualified personnel, Sun Ho said, but he sounded less certain than before. Dr. Kyung-an spoke up from the back of the room. Have any of your qualified personnel ever built a stellar wind collector? Have they ever mined asteroids with modified construction drones? Have they ever fought off an alien fleet using construction equipment as weapons? The questions hit home. Everyone in the room knew that the innovations and techniques developed at Alpha Centauri existed nowhere else. The knowledge and experience of the construction crews could not be easily replaced, but Sun Ho was not finished. If you will not serve Earth's interests willingly, then you will serve them by force. Anyone who refuses to cooperate will be arrested and sent back to Earth for trial. The threat hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. People looked at each other with fear and uncertainty. They had families and friends on Earth who could be hurt if they resisted. But they also had a project they had sacrificed everything to build. It was Minji who spoke first. I declare independence, she said simply. Not from Earth, not from humanity, but from politicians who do not understand what we have built here. Others began to nod and speak their agreement. Independence, said Yuna. Independence, agreed Minho. Independence, said Hana. The word spread around the room like wildfire. Construction workers, scientists, engineers, and support staff all began to declare their independence from Earth's political control. They were not rebelling against humanity or their home planet. They were protecting their work and their dreams from people who wanted to destroy them. The transport ship New Horizon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Alpha Centauri system, its hull scarred from the dangerous journey through Federation blockade zones. Captain Inha Seo stood on the bridge, watching the megastructure grow larger on the main screen as they approached. "There it is," she said softly to her crew. "Humanity's first true home among the stars." Behind her, Colony Administrator Jiho Ryu checked his passenger manifest one more time. 3,000 civilians had made the dangerous journey from Earth, sneaking past alien patrols and political restrictions. They were teachers, doctors, farmers, shopkeepers, and craftspeople. Most importantly, they were families with children who would grow up in space. The megastructure was even more impressive up close than it had looked in the transmissions from Earth. The great ring stretched around the star like a silver band, its inner surface dotted with lights that showed where construction was still ongoing. It was already large enough to house millions of people, with room for cities, farms, forests, and lakes. Jiho had studied the plans for months, but seeing it in person was overwhelming. "How do we even begin to organize a settlement this size?" he wondered aloud. Captain Inha smiled. "The same way humans have always done it, one family at a time, one neighborhood at a time, one problem at a time." Admiral Jiwan met them at the main docking bay. She looked tired but happy as she welcomed the first civilian colonists to their new home. The independence crisis had been resolved peacefully when Earth finally agreed to let the megastructure govern itself. Now they could focus on their original purpose, creating a place where humans could live and thrive among the stars. "Welcome to Alpha Station," Jiwan said to the crowd of new arrivals gathered in the bay. "I know the journey was difficult and dangerous, but you are here now and you are home." The colonists looked around with wonder at the vast space of the docking bay. The ceiling stretched high overhead, supported by graceful arches that seemed to defy gravity. Through transparent sections, they could see the star shining beyond, providing light and warmth to their new world. Dr. So-Young Kwon led the terraforming teams that would create Earth-like environments within the megastructure's rotating sections. Her job was to turn empty metal spaces into places where people could live comfortably. It was challenging work that required understanding biology, chemistry, physics, and psychology all at once. "The basic life support systems are working," she explained to Jiho as they toured the residential sections. "Air, water, gravity, temperature control. But making a place feel like home requires more than just keeping people alive. We need gardens and parks, familiar smells and sounds, spaces that remind people of Earth while still being uniquely their own." The first residential section was designed to house 10,000 people in a mix of apartments, houses, and community buildings. The architects had tried to recreate the feeling of a small town, with tree-lined streets, a central plaza, schools, shops, and recreational facilities. But creating an ecosystem in space was more complicated than anyone had expected. The soil had to be specially formulated from processed asteroid materials. The air circulation systems needed constant adjustment to prevent dead zones where plants could not grow. Even something as simple as rain required complex weather control systems. The breakthrough came when Dr. So-Young realized that they did not need to perfectly copy Earth's environment. They could create something new and better, designed specifically for life in space. Plants could be genetically modified to thrive in low gravity. Weather patterns could be optimized for comfort and efficiency. Animals could be selected for their ability to adapt to artificial environments. "We are not just recreating Earth," she told her team. "We are creating Earth 2.0, improved and optimized for space living." The first families to move into the residential section were volunteers, who understood they would be living in an experimental environment. Everything was new and untested. Problems were expected and accepted as part of the learning process. The Kong family was among the first residents. Teacher Youngjae Kong, his wife Dr. Hyejin Kong, and their two children, 8-year-old Min Seo and 5-year-old Jaemin, moved into a 3-bedroom apartment on what became known as Maple Street. "It feels strange," Hyejin admitted to her husband as they unpacked their belongings. "The gravity is a little different from Earth. The sounds are different. Even the way the light comes through the windows is different." But the children adapted quickly, as children always do. Min Seo was fascinated by the way things fell more slowly in the reduced gravity. Jaemin loved watching the artificial weather systems create gentle rain in the Central Park. Within days, they were running and playing with other children as if they had always lived there. The real test came 6 weeks after the first families moved in, when the gravity generators in Section 7 suffered a catastrophic failure. Emergency Coordinator Hyok Go was in his office reviewing supply reports when alarms began ringing throughout the megastructure. "Gravity failure in Section 7, reported his assistant. "Complete loss of artificial gravity affecting 12,000 residents." Hyok's heart sank. Section 7 was one of the newest residential areas, home to many families with young children. Without gravity, everything would start floating. People, furniture, water, air. It would be chaos and potentially deadly. "Initiate emergency evacuation. Procedures," he ordered. "All available personnel to Section 7 immediately." The evacuation was complicated by the fact that people could not walk normally without gravity. Children were floating around their homes, confused and scared. Adults were struggling to control their movements and gather their belongings. Water from broken pipes was forming floating spheres that could drown anyone who accidentally floated into them. Emergency teams used magnetic boots and tether lines to move through the affected section. They found some people trapped by floating furniture and debris. Others were injured from colliding with walls and ceilings when the gravity first failed. But they also found something unexpected. Many residents were helping each other, using their knowledge of zero gravity to guide those who were struggling. The children, who had been playing in reduced gravity for weeks, were actually helping the adults learn how to move safely. "The community is responding better than we expected," reported rescue team leader Suman Park. "People are taking care of each other instead of panicking." Chief Engineer Min-ho Kim and his repair teams worked desperately to restore the gravity generators. The failure was worse than they had initially thought. The main power coupling had burned out, and several backup systems had been damaged by the electrical surge. "How long to repair?" asked Hyok over the communication system. "At least 12 hours, Min-ho replied. "Maybe longer if we run into complications." 12 hours was too long to keep 12,000 people in emergency shelters. They needed a different solution. Dr. So-young had an idea that seemed crazy but might work. "What if we do not fix the gravity right away? What if we use this as an opportunity to test our zero-gravity living systems?" The megastructure had been designed with zero-gravity sections for manufacturing and research, but they had never tested how well people could live without artificial gravity for extended periods. This emergency could become a valuable experiment. Working. Quickly, her teams converted empty cargo areas into temporary zero-gravity living spaces. Special sleeping bags that attached to walls, food dispensers designed for weightless conditions, and recreational areas where people could safely float and play. To everyone's surprise, many residents found the experience exciting rather than frightening. Children especially loved the sensation of floating and flying. Adults discovered that some activities were actually easier without gravity, like moving heavy objects and working on overhead repairs. "It is like living in a three-dimensional world instead of a flat one," said resident Na-young Im. "You can use the walls and ceiling as much as the floor. It opens up new possibilities." The gravity generators were finally repaired 18 hours after the initial failure. But when the residents of Section 7 were asked if they wanted the gravity restored immediately, many chose to stay in zero gravity for a few more days to continue the experiment. The incident taught important lessons about emergency procedures and community resilience, but it also revealed something more important. Humans were incredibly adaptable. Given time and support, people could learn to thrive in almost any environment. As more colonists arrived over the following months, the megastructure began to feel like a real community. Streets filled with the sounds of children playing and adults working. Shops opened to serve the growing population. Schools began teaching the first generation of children who would grow up among the stars. But the most remarkable development was cultural. The colonists were not just recreating Earth society in space. They were creating something new, a blend of human traditions and space-age innovations. Art and music reflected the unique environment of the megastructure. Architecture took advantage of the ability to build in 3 dimensions without worrying about earthquakes or weather. Even language began to evolve, with new words and phrases that described experiences unique to space living. Dr. Yoonji Nam, who had joined the terraforming team, was fascinated by how quickly the culture was changing. 1 year after the first colonists arrived, Governor Ji-won Park stood in the executive office of Alpha Station, looking out through the transparent walls at the completed megastructure. The great ring stretched away in both directions, a silver band that caught and reflected the light of Alpha Centauri. 2 million humans now called it home. The transformation had been remarkable. What had begun as a construction project had become humanity's first true deep space civilization. Children were being born who would never set foot on a planet. Scientists were making discoveries that could only be made in the unique environment of space. Artists were creating works that captured the beauty and wonder of life among the stars. Soft chime announced the arrival of visitors to her office. Ambassador Veltar entered, accompanied by a delegation from the Galactic Federation. The alien diplomat looked very different from the arrogant creature who had dismissed human ambitions just 5 years earlier. His posture was respectful, almost humble. "Governor Park," he said with a formal bow. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." "Ambassador," Ji-won replied, gesturing to the conference table. "Please sit. What brings the Federation to Alpha Station?" Veltar glanced at his companions before answering. "We come seeking partnership," he said, the words clearly difficult for him to speak. "The Federation Council has studied your achievements here, your stellar wind collection technology, your adaptive construction methods, your rapid terraforming techniques. We would like to learn from you." Ji-won kept her expression neutral, though inside she felt a surge of satisfaction. The same aliens who had tried to stop their project were now asking for help. "What kind of partnership are you proposing?" "Technology exchange," replied one of the other delegates, a tall being with crystalline skin. "We have knowledge of hyperspace, navigation and energy shielding that could benefit your expansion plans. In return, we hope you might share some of your engineering innovations." Master Builder Yuna Song, who had joined the meeting as the station's chief technology officer, leaned forward with interest. "Expansion plans?" she asked. Ji-won smiled. It was time to share the news that had been kept secret for months. "We are planning 3 more megastructures," she announced. "1 in the Proxima Centauri system, 1 around Wolf 359, and 1 in the Sirius system. Construction ships are already being prepared." The alien delegates looked stunned. Building 1 megastructure had seemed impossible to them. The idea that humans were planning 4 was beyond their comprehension. "How?" asked Veltar. "Your species has been in space for barely a century. Our oldest civilizations took millennia to develop such capabilities." "That might be exactly why we can do it," suggested Dr. Hana Choi, who had joined them via holographic link from the research section. "We do not have thousands of years of tradition telling us something is impossible. When we encounter a problem, we find a solution instead of accepting that it cannot be solved." The meeting continued for several hours, with both sides discussing potential areas of cooperation. The Federation was particularly interested in human mining techniques and power generation systems. The humans were curious about alien medical technology and advanced materials science. But the most significant moment came when Ambassador Veltar made a personal confession. "I owe you an apology, Governor Park. I was wrong about your species. I thought your rapid advancement was dangerous, a threat to galactic stability. Now I realize it is exactly what the galaxy needs." "What do you mean?" asked Ji-Won. "The Federation has become stagnant," Veltar explained. "We have been the dominant powers for so long that we stopped innovating, stopped taking risks, stopped dreaming of greater things. Your success has reminded us that progress requires courage and creativity, not just age and experience." After the Federation delegation left, Ji-Won walked through the residential sections of the megastructure. The streets were busy with people going about their daily lives. Children played in parks where artificial rain fell gently from carefully controlled weather systems. Markets sold goods produced in the station's farms and factories. Cafes and restaurants offered cuisine that blended Earth traditions with innovations made possible by space living. In the education center, she stopped to watch a class of teenagers learning advanced physics from Dr. Kyung-an. These young people had grown up in space, and their understanding of three-dimensional movement and zero-gravity engineering was intuitive in ways that Earth-born humans had to study for years to achieve. "Today we are going to discuss faster-than-light communication," Dr. Kyung was telling his students. "The breakthrough came when we realized that quantum entanglement could be amplified using stellar wind particles." One student, a girl about 16 years old, raised her hand. "Could we use the same principle to create instantaneous transportation?" Dr. Kyung smiled. "That is exactly the kind of thinking that leads to new discoveries. Why do you not work on that for your advanced project?" The casual way the students discussed technologies that would revolutionize galactic civilization reminded Ji-Won of how far humanity had come. These children took for granted achievements that other species considered miraculous. In the industrial section, Chief Engineer Minho Kim was overseeing the construction of the new generation of construction ships. These vessels incorporated every lesson learned during the building of Alpha Station. They were faster, more efficient, and more adaptable than anything humans had built before. "How long until the Proxima fleet is ready?" Ji-Won asked. 6 months for the first wave," Minho replied. "Another year for the full construction fleet. But these ships are so much better than our first generation that the new megastructures should be completed in half the time it took to build this one." The speed of human advancement was accelerating. Each success made the next project easier and faster. Each innovation opened up new possibilities that had not existed before. But the most remarkable changes were cultural and social. The people living on Alpha Station were developing their own identity, separate from Earth but still fundamentally human. They were citizens of the galaxy rather than any single world. This became clear during the first Galaxy Day celebration, a holiday created to commemorate the completion of the megastructure. People from dozens of different Earth cultures came together to create something new, a celebration that honored their origins while embracing their future among the stars. The festival featured music that could only be performed in the unique, acoustic environment of the megastructure. Art that used the three-dimensional space and variable gravity to create impossible beauty. Food that combined ingredients grown in space with traditional recipes from around Earth. But the most moving moment came when the children of Alpha Station performed a song they had written themselves. The words spoke of leaving the cradle of Earth to explore the infinite possibilities of space. The melody was unlike anything composed on Earth, incorporating harmonic patterns that only made sense in the acoustic environment of the megastructure. As Ji-Won listened to the young voices singing about their dreams of visiting other stars and building new worlds, she realized that humanity had crossed a threshold. These children would not just live in space. They would shape the future of human civilization among the stars. The celebration was interrupted by an urgent message from the communication center. Long-range sensors had detected something extraordinary. signals from human colonies in distant star systems. The message was brief, but electrifying. Construction of Ross 128 megastructure proceeding on schedule. Colony requests technical consultation on stellar engineering. Ji-Wan stared at the message in amazement. Somehow, other groups of humans had launched their own megastructure projects without any communication with Alpha Station. The success of the first project had inspired independent efforts across human space. "How many colonies are building megastructures?" she asked the communications officer. "At least 7 that we have detected so far," came the reply. "Probably more beyond our sensor range." Humanity was not just building one new home among the stars. They were building dozens, maybe hundreds. The species was spreading across the galaxy at a rate that no one had thought possible. Dr. Hana appeared on the communication screen from her laboratory, excitement clear in her voice. "Governor, you need to see this. The quantum resonance patterns from these distant projects are creating a network effect. The megastructures are naturally linking together into a galaxy-spanning communication system." The implications were staggering. Not only were humans building multiple megastructures, but those structures were automatically connecting into a vast network that could span the entire galaxy. Messages, data, and even people could potentially be transmitted instantly between any 2 points in the network. As news of the discovery spread through Alpha Station, people gathered in the central plaza to celebrate. They were no longer pioneers building an isolated outpost. They were founding members of a new galactic civilization. Foreman Minji Bay, now the head of the Colonial Engineering Corps, spoke to the crowd that had gathered. 5 years ago, we came here with a dream of building something amazing. Today, we are part of something even greater than we imagined. We are the first citizens of a human galactic civilization.